G'day, guys. This is Jay here, Journey of a Whitefeather. A chat with Jay, opinions and views. We're looking at kangaroos, koalas, and Steve Irwin impersonations. I'm just going to adjust my shirt there. That's how we do things around here. It's on the fly, as we call it, an audible in pro wrestling, but we go from there. But we've got a big one today. I've had a lot of information. Oh, hang on. I've got to get my marbles out of my mouth. Thank you very much for being so generous with your time, as we say. But, this is why baby life. But we were talking a lot about superannuation and the effects of superannuation on the country and how it all works. And I've had the honour of knowing a friend of mine by the name of Tim Mango. He's from BTR, Beat the Reset, and he introduced me into self-managed super funds, and I have gone into it. And for me personally, I think it's a fantastic thing. But there's a lot of questions that I don't know about, and I am very, very honoured to have a couple of magnificent friends of mine who are coming on to have a chat about self-managed super and about the future of Australia. We will have the first one I'm going to introduce is Kylie from BTR. She's come on. She's an expert. She knows what's going on. And later in the show, we'll probably have a chat to, one of my tag team partners, Annie, the Chief Disruptor. And she's doing a PhD in self-managed superannuation. I should take that back. And she's going to have a couple of nice little questions for Kylie. Kylie, you want to jump on? Thank you so much for coming on. And
Thanks for having me, Jay.
Absolutely. Do you want to give a quick rundown of who you are and the magnificent information and knowledge that you have? Let's get it all going.
Okay. So I'm Kylie and I'm from Beat the Reset, or BTR as people may know us as.
Yep.
I work for Tim Manger, so very privileged to be able to basically do consults with people where we teach them not only about investing in gold, silver, and Bitcoin, but also help people through the journey of setting up for self-managed super funds.
Absolutely, it's a big thing in the future. I mean, we look at what's happening in the realms of Australia at the moment. People are looking at houses and all those kind of money, and we won't even go into what I've been getting into with all the stuff we're talking about, where that money goes. That's another whole topic. But what we want to know is we want to get some information straight up about what's happening with regards to self-managed super. And that is a big thing. So sorry to cut you off. They've got a bit of a delay.
That's all right.
Okay.
I think the biggest thing is not necessarily self-managed super funds, but what the government has written into legislation regarding super in general.
Okay.
So we've had 3 super funds collapse this year in Australia.
Right.
Where people basically have lost their whole retirement. And self-managed super funds is what people are looking at now, simply because of the fact that they know their super isn't safe. Even if they don't know why, they know it's not. So in 2018, our wonderful government wrote into legislation that in a financial crisis, not only can they bail in on our bank accounts, but they can do the same with our super funds. Then we had roughly, say, 10 weeks or so ago, Michelle Bullock, she came out and she announced our super is not safe. Most of it is invested in overseas shares, particularly those in the US. And she also announced in that same article that the US dollar is going to crash. So in that same article as well, they also wrote that the trillions of dollars that exist in our super fund could literally wipe out our Australian debt. So I don't know about you, Jay, but when I hear those kinds of announcements, I know they've written into legislation that they can bail in on our super funds. That does not make me feel terribly safe about keeping my super in a retail or industry fund.
Tell us a little bit more about what the main questions are going out in Australia at the moment with regards to what you just said regarding the legislation. If you want to repeat that, and then tell us what the big questions are at the moment. Like, there's a lot of people who are asking, myself, and they really loved what Annie and I have been doing, talking about superannuation and making it a topic that people need to know about. And we've had some really good feedback from both for us with that. I'll let you have the floor with that one there. So you want to repeat the legislation, then go into some of the main questions we're getting.
Yeah, so the government wrote into legislation in 2018 that in a financial crisis, they can not only bail in on our bank accounts, but they can do the same thing with our super fund. So, and that does actually apply to self-managed super funds as well. So the difference is the kind of assets that we talk about at BTR are physical assets that you own in your possession. So gold, silver, Bitcoin. So with your retail and your industry super fund, if the government want to bail in on it, they just take it. And if you've got a self-managed super fund that's in property and shares, again, the government can just take it. But if you've got it in gold, silver, and Bitcoin that you're physically holding in your possession, the only way the government can take it is to request it from you.
Annie, have you got a response to that one? I mean, as I said, you're very knowledgeable of what's been going on.
I don't know anything about that legislation. I've been looking at whether Australians are going to retire with enough money. So I'm just looking at the data that exists right now, how much super people have, how much debt people will retire with, the fact that all superannuation and age pension relies on you owning your home outright. You know, that they're the things that my PhD is looking at. And the fact that super and, you know, super has not, like it was based on male full-time 40-year work. And we don't have that for men or women anymore, this continuous full-time employment, right? Most people are now on contract, you know, apart from large corporates and, you know, government and politicians, they're fine. But for the rest of us, it's a largely casualised workforce, and super really didn't account for that, because the super guarantee is your employer puts 12.5% in your super. For everyone that's self-employed, we have to put that in. And I don't know about you, I don't put that much into my own super.
That's exactly right. Depending on what you're doing. So Kylie, with regards to the current state of what's happening with regards to self-managed super funds, I need you to give us a bit of a quick rundown, because people are asking questions about it. They go, right, how do I do it? What do I do it? And to go with regards to what Annie was saying, what's the effect? We're looking at the effect upon the economy and upon themselves. What do you see? So I'll go into the first question with regards to the main dot points with regards to getting something set up.
Well, I would like to reiterate that Annie is absolutely correct. I reckon at least 90% of the people I do a self-managed super fund consult with will not have enough to retire on in the current climate of how things are. So there's no way. Plus, when the government brought in 2020 throughout COVID, I think it came in 2021 actually, that you could access your super, a lot of people did and didn't understand the effects of that. Plus, you know, it's a forced contribution if you're in full-time employment. It's not something that most people would actually bother with most of the time. And the reality is a lot of people don't have enough in their super anyway to retire completely on that. They're going to rely upon the government pension anyway.
Right. So what about self-managed? So tell us a little bit about, we'll get a couple of basic questions that you get when you have a consult, because you've got people who are in super, want to pull it out, hint, hint, put my hand up. And what people are scared, I'll tell you straight up. So let's go with that, and then I'll get Annie to respond where it sits in the community, because obviously she's done some really good research into that.
Well, they're right to be scared. Look, at the end of the day, most people are told, like if you look on the ATO website, no one would ever do a self-managed super fund. They deliberately make it look like it's difficult and like it's something that you have to have several $100,000 in your super fund before you could even look at doing it. That is not correct, particularly with the types of assets that we talk about. If you want to go into property, absolutely, you should have at least 250,000 as a minimum. But the reality is it's not a good investment option. So we look at physical gold, physical silver, and Bitcoin as options for your self-managed super fund portfolio. With those types of assets, you're holding it within your possession. You don't have all these fees or anything like that you've got to pay on it. You buy it, you hold it, it increases in value. you get 100% of the profits. So it's not something that is a bad investment, and you can start with very minimal for that. I had a whole $24,000 in my super fund, having mainly worked for myself and raised children. I certainly wasn't going to put any spare funds I had into something that got tied up for at least until I was at least 60. So I chose not to put it there and to do private investing instead. And personally, it's certainly done my super fund a lot better by having it in silver, is what I put mine in, a lot better than what it would have if I left it in a retail fund.
Fantastic. So what are the other questions? Well, I think the biggest one, sorry, Annie, I'll get to you 1 second, just about regards fees. That's the one I'm getting all the time. I'm getting fees. It's cost all this, cost this. And if you do go on the ATO website, yeah, you read it and go, hang on, oh, no, this is not worth it. And you hear it on the streets about it, And as I said, I'll get Annie's her opinion, what she's heard on the streets, obviously, with what she's got. But what are the main costs? And what are the main costs with regards to holding your own super? What is your advice?
Yeah, so you have your setup costs, and then you have your ongoing auditing and compliance costs. Now, it depends who you go through. We have sourced accountants who do it at a very reasonable cost. So just under $2,000 is what our accountants will charge for the setup. And that will cover everything. And that includes, so there's two different types of trusts you can have within a self-managed super fund. One is an individual or a standard trust, and the other is a company or a corporate trust. Right. So the company or corporate trust is more expensive, but that's our price or our accountant's price, not ours, just under that $2,000. Yep. Most accountants will charge you $3,000 plus. Some I've heard as much as $7,500 for a setup, and that's just ridiculous. And mainly that's because accountants don't understand this type of investing. They also don't fully understand, not all accountants, mind you, fit this into this category, but a lot of accountants don't fully understand how to set up a self-managed super fund or what's involved. So they end up upping their fees because it's going to take them a lot longer. If you've got an accountant who's very used to doing self-managed super funds, they've got all their processes and everything in place, and it flows very easily, and they do not need to charge exorbitant fees. Now, in terms of your ongoing auditing and compliance fees, you're looking at around about $1,700 a year. Some, again, can charge an incredible amount of money. With the type of investments we talk about, gold, silver, Bitcoin, you can manage that yourself. You don't need to pay someone to be managing your fund. Your compliance and auditing, yes, you pay your accountant for that. And like I said, about $1,700 a year, which most people in their super funds are getting at least that anyway. Otherwise, you just leave a small cash component to your fund, which is going to cover that.
I'd like to take this time to shout out our supporters at Liberty Bullion, the best gold, silver and platinum traders in Melbourne, even Australia. If you want to give them a call, their knowledge, their customer service is second to none. Back to the show. Absolutely. Okay, I'm going to move over to my tag team partner over in Sydney. Haven't seen her for a while. You're looking well, young lady, which is great. Tell us a little bit about what's going on with regards to your research. So we've heard about self-managed. We know that you're researching on the effect of super. We're talking about property, owning your own property. We're looking at one wage. What are the new facts that you found in the last couple of months? Is there anything that has changed since we've talked last? Is there anything has come forth?
Yeah, so I presented a paper at a conference last week, and it was on it was basically on women, retirement and risk, and I called it the invisible crisis. And as I went through to put together the presentation, women's risk is actually quite obvious, and it's cumulative. And that's something that, it's cascading. So it starts with a wage gap because of the types of careers that women choose. Yep. Also because women have children and they take time out of the workforce, and largely they then work part-time to work around the care arrangements. Yep. And then they end up accruing less super because of all of that. And then divorce is another issue that seems to be happening mid-30s, mid-40s, and sometimes 60s, which is decimating resources. And then another pattern that I've started to see, like in the last, say, 5 years, is redundancy at 45.
Okay,
and
we talked about that one on the last one. Has that come up a little bit more these days? Has it become more prevalent?
It's a reality. And so the issue is, and I don't know, do people earn the same amount of money when they get made redundant? And I would suspect no. So that means in the last 20 years of your working, life, before you choose to retire or before you can retire, you are diminishing the amount of money that you're able to put into your super. So for women, as I said, it's more obvious because of the care breaks, which take them out of their career. But it's gendered at the moment. So you can actually see that there's a gender disadvantage in retirement, and a lot of women end up poor. And not only do they not have enough super, but about 44% of women over the age of 45 are renters.
Wow.
So going into retirement as a renter, and the majority, like 99%, are in the private rental market, which is, really, really scary. So these patterns, though, are going to affect men as well. So it's going to be a generational issue because, successive generations have even less security in work. They have less access to housing affordability, whether as renters or as owners. And, I'm just generally seeing that more retirees now are ending up in retirement with a mortgage, and they're being lent more money in their 50s, which means they're going to retire with more debt in retirement. And the median super, right? So the idea is you use your super to pay off that debt. And the median super for a man at 60 is 205 grand. And I think the debt is a lot more than what people are able to pay. So this 5% loan, which is, totally ridiculous, and it just shows how stupid the government is.
Yeah.
The minister, the department, Treasury, anyone that has backed this ridiculous scheme, which is only driving up prices and putting people into more debt and longer term debt.
Right.
So, so those are the things that I've been finding. And to Kylie's point, it's single moms, it's single parents, in general, and it's single people, right? Yeah. So, if you are going to head into retirement as a couple, you're a little bit better off because there's economies of scale. You can share, the expenses. Whereas when you're single, you're forking out those expenses on your own. So, it is really, really scary. I think more people will opt to try and do better with their super and, look at the self-managed options. Definitely, as Kylie mentioned, the people dipping into their super through COVID is going to cost a shit ton.
Yeah.
Like, it's ridiculous how much it's going to cost the government as well. Yeah. Because, I worked for the Morrison government at the time, and I remember saying to the minister that I worked for, it depends what age they can dip into it. Like, if you're 60, you're never going to be able to recoup that. Or if you're 45 or 50, you got to think about it. If you're 20, it doesn't concern me as much because you've got another 40 years in the workforce. So anyway, they didn't want to do that, so they just let everyone do it. And it means that a lot more people are going to end up on the age pension. But this conference was all about retirement and pension research, and every single presentation was basically saying the middle class is in trouble, which I've said to you before in other podcasts.
Yes.
So it's the middle class that's in deep trouble, and everyone's going to end up on the age pension unless you're really rich. And I'll tell you one more concerning thing. There's an organisation called the Super Consumers Australia, and they represent people that, are consumers of super. And they said that about 36% of Australians are not engaged at all, whether to take their money out and put it into an SMSF or not, or whatever. They're completely disengaged until the day they retire. That's 36%. That's a lot.
That's scary,
right? It is
man.
scary. But there's a top, say, 20% that are doing okay, and the rest are the ones that would be brave enough to, move their money around and think about gold and silver and SMSF and crypto and whatever.
Okay.
So diversified investments. Like the more sophisticated you are at understanding and being concerned about your retirement, the more you're going to diversify your investments and not put all your eggs in the one basket.
Absolutely. Kylie, I'm going to get you to hit that straight away. What did you take out of that? I mean, looks like it's going to be single mums over the age of 45. What are you seeing, and what did you get out of that info? Has that really given you something to go back to the group and say, look, we might have to look at something else, or maybe target that, not even target them, but get the information out? I mean, sounds like people just, they're just living check to check, and they don't really care in a lot of ways. What do you think?
I don't think it's necessarily they don't care. They don't know. And super has been made to be like this kind of elusive thing out there that no one really understands. But it's more simple than they like you to know. Within the retail and the industry super fund sort of sector, they deliberately keep it so that you don't know much about it. And yes, single mums do end up wearing the brunt of low super funds and things like that. But I'd like to acknowledge the men who go through what I like to call the asset reduction program, which is divorce.
The asset reduction program.
The asset reduction program, that's what I call it.
Right.
A lot of men are losing a lot of their super. So they work really hard. And these are single dads as well, so who have to sort of shuffle their work time around caring for children and stuff as well. If you've been through 2 asset reduction programs and you're in your mid-50s by that stage, you're walking out with very little super. So I think as much as we sort of look at women, and women absolutely, without a doubt, present with the lowest funds, men really are starting to, I guess, feel the pinch, if you like, of those, if they've been through the divorce and stuff like that. So,
and can I just say, it depends on when they got divorced. So when I got divorced in 2000, you couldn't touch their super. So there was a point that you could not touch the man's super. Okay. And there was a point where you could. So yes, those successive, my brother is one of them, only once divorced, but I meet heaps of people that are twice divorced, and that's twice asset reduction, 100%.
Yeah. And it's really sad because you kind of think, I won't even go into, which I could, into the whole like divorce side of things and what happens there, and the legal system and the justice system that's not just, et cetera, just like you mentioned before, Annie, about government. And we have got sort of hours and hours on end to discuss all of that.
One day we will. One day we will, for sure.
I used to work in welfare, and I worked in welfare for 18 years. So I've seen a lot, I know a lot. But at the end of the day, we're not taught how to understand super, how to understand investment. And a lot of us think it's a lot of hard work because of how it's presented. You know, Jay, that gold and silver investing is very simple.
It is very, I speak about it. I mean, I was very, not skeptical, but I think it was more the money side of things. And again, I wasn't privileged to the knowledge. I knew about super, and I knew all the figures that Annie was talking about. I'm going, oh my God. And then Tim came along. I want to know, what are the 5 things you tell if someone comes and you go, oh my God, Kylie, I want to do self-managed super. What are the 5 things you're going to tell someone that needs that knowledge that they need to know? What's the 5 things?
That you can do it, and you can do it quite easily.
Cool. Yep.
That you can invest in assets that you can protect outside of the system as much as you possibly can, because at the end of the day, super, whether it's self-managed or otherwise, is still a corporate structure, and so it's still very regulated by the government. That you're going to reap the bigger returns on it that you possibly can. With current super, you get roughly between 7.5% to 10% return. On average, it's 8.5%, can get up to 12%. If you look at gold and silver, just even in itself, without looking at the massive growth it's had recently, you're looking at around about 20% minimum, but you can get up to 70% return, and that's all right. Your profit. You're not paying anyone out of that. So I think for me personally, they're the kinds of things that I talk to people about, and to, I guess, try and as much as possible take away the fear that exists of what if I do take it out of the system and then these things crash. You know what? Currently, you've got it in a system that's going to crash anyway. So it's just that we're so groomed, for want of a better word. Yeah. We're so groomed into thinking, work hard, save hard, buy a property. We don't even look at alternatives. And we have, especially here in Australia, we have the whole, if it's too good to be true, it probably is. Well, you know what? Yeah. Some things are actually true, even though they're really good. And
this is why we do what we do. We try to get out this information. We've got 10 minutes on this part. Annie, you want to respond to some of those questions? Have you heard them on the street with all your research? I mean, and what you've been doing is fantastic. You're doing a just service to everyone. I'm telling you right now, some of the stuff I've learned from you is amazing. And
well, look, I'm just looking at the data, right? And what annoys me is that the super funds can look at the data, the government looks at the data. I mean, I'm not the first person to look at it.
Yeah.
The interesting thing is what I'm putting together is a longevity retirement security index, which includes things like divorce, like redundancy, like career breaks, like care, like personal health. Building it not just about how much money you accrue over time, but how much money you really need to support your life. And we've got enough technology and AI now and machine learning to be able to build a system that can predict who's going to be at risk. And the only thing I know is that people should be looking at their super a lot earlier than they are. And I tell my kids who are 28 and 32, even $5 every now and then at your age is going to make a massive difference by the time you're my age, and, be curious, definitely. Like, I've got crypto, I haven't got an SMSF because I've got Commonwealth Super. So, and I've got a small amount with Aware Super, which I did deliberately because they're building affordable housing for frontline workers.
Yep.
So for me, it's like I would have said 10 years ago, make sure you buy a house, make sure you have a house, whether it's yours or an investment property, make sure you have that asset. But now it's like ridiculous how much you would have to get into debt to be able to do that. So what I would say now is, get yourself interested in how you want to retire. And apparently you need $1 million in super at retirement to live a comfortable retirement. And that's on the assumption that you own your home outright. So, wow. That's all I know. That's what I'm studying. That's what I'm trying to unravel. And, I want, my thing around SMSF is I really want the people that have chosen that path to be protected and not to be demonized and not to be taxed to the hilt or whatever, because, it's people that are really trying to improve their retirement outcomes. And that's a good thing, So if you're in your 20s, put an extra $5 whenever you can, $100 a year, whatever. If you're older, do a little bit more, and listen to podcasts like this, which educate you a little bit on something else. And an interesting thing that I also learned at the conference, which I knew, but the public probably doesn't realize, is super's there and they just take your money for 40 years and, do the investments and whatever. And then there's a cliff. The second you retire, that's it. They abrogate their responsibility. And the whole sort of issue around super is they've been saying forever, but we don't know if Jay has 10 super funds or 5 properties or whether he's married or not. But the superannuation or the, pension covenant, is basically saying that super funds have to be more engaged with their members, have to have more understanding of cohorts. So people that don't own a home, people that have been divorced, people who obviously are putting less money in their super because they've been made redundant or they're working part-time or whatever. So they have to be more responsible. They have to, in my humble opinion, they should have more of a duty of care to their customers. And quite frankly, I don't think we've seen that. So that's what I think.
Oh, fantastic. We've got a part 2. And if you want to hang around for 10, 15, if you can, I'll get that going because this is always the way I do things. It's a lot easier to edit. Just a final word, Kylie, for part 1. If someone was to look at self-managed super, where can they go to get the information? Do they come? I'm going to say they come to BTR, but is there anywhere else they can find? I mean, obviously, everybody doesn't know what's going on with that. But is there any other reputable websites that you know of that they can actually go to that are easy to find?
The short answer is no.
Okay. Yep. Cool.
A lot of people are given sporadic information. And because of that, they've got gaps. And so when they start out on this journey, when they haven't got the support and the help, what ends up happening is they go, you know what, this is too hard. It's too much. It's ridiculous. And they give up. And they give up because they haven't got the support. At BTR, what we do with the consult is when you book a consult, we give you all the information, we make the connections, and then we support you right through up until you acquire your assets.
So I can actually justify that. I can actually testify to that.
So because of that, like at any time throughout any part of the process, if anyone's got questions, they're not sure, they just want to clarify something, they've got access to myself throughout that entire process. So it means that they're not trying to do it on their own. It means when it gets overwhelming or they feel like, they can't keep going with the process, whatever, they've got support, they've got help. And it's really not that difficult. In fact, the most difficult things that we're finding now is the super funds don't want to release the funds. And so they're making it difficult. And also banks, they don't like this type of investing. So they're locking up people's accounts as soon as they try and make the investment.
I've heard that too.
Yeah. So again, what that's doing, and it's all aimed at making sure people don't get control of their financial future the way that they should. So the government doesn't want you to be in a position of wealth or a position of freedom. They need you in a debt-based position because then you're in a position to be controlled.
Fantastic. Well, that's a take. Ladies and gentlemen, part 2 coming up. We're going to try and get some more information with regards to some of Annie's research that she's been doing. And the main thing is this is not financial advice as such. Okay, it's basically giving you some information, and you can go out. We can give you some information with regards to websites. You can even contact us, put some comments in the board, and I can pass it on to the ladies because obviously very, very knowledgeable in what they're doing. Part 2 coming up. Thanks very much, ladies. We'll go get a drink. The drill. The kangaroos, koalas. I was telling my overseas viewers, I'll go and feed me kangaroos out the back, and we'll be back very, very soon with part 2 about self-managed super.